good artists copy, great artists steal. And we have, always been shameless about stealing great ideas.
This is probably my favorite quote about filmmaking. Nothing has given me more freedom to steal from the idols I love. But when it comes to video essays, I've always found myself stealing from the same dude over and over again.
I'm really excited about today's guest because he thinks about shit deeply. His powerful essays on an absurdly wide range of topics. He is, in my opinion, everything that is good about the internet, and he's... Please help me in welcoming the man who's entirely self-made Evan Puschak.
What an introduction.
Dude.
The brilliance of Evan Puschak's craft is undeniable. That's down to his amazing editing, his clean visual effects, and even his superior level of knowledge and intellect has really put him above all his peers, and it's not something I really need to get into, nor am I smart enough to analyze. But one thing that doesn't get mentioned enough when it comes to Puschak's capabilities, in my opinion, is sound. What do I mean by that? Well, let me ask you this. How many times have you watched a Nerdwriter video and went, "This is awesome, but I have no idea what the fuck he's talking about"? Yeah, admit it. You, me, and everybody else has felt this way at least once. And believe it or not, situations like this where I'm completely oblivious to what he's talking about are actually moments where I start to realize how well the soundscape has been navigating my attention the whole time. Take this excerpt, for example, from one of his recent analysis on senior advisor of US President Donald Trump, Jared Kushner. Now, I don't know who Jared Kushner is, nor do I care about Trump's inner circle, and certainly the US political sphere doesn't affect me in any possible way, but it's probably a good opportunity, at least for me, to take a look at how Puschak's manipulation of sound functions.
It's quickly become apparent that Jared Kushner, the 36-year-old real estate investor and husband of Ivanka Trump, is President Donald Trump's most trusted advisor within his inner circle.
The sonic atmosphere of every standard Nerdwriter video goes a little something like this. There's the voice of Puschak, meaning the voiceovers.
It's quickly become apparent that Jared Kushner, the 36-year-old real estate investor and husband of Ivanka Trump,
There's source audio, meaning speeches, a scene from a movie, or maybe a few bars of music he's trying to study.
when it comes down to it, his political goals are basically this.
We're gonna win, win, win. You're gonna get so tired of winning.
There's non-diegetic background music. And then there's SFX.
Jared was certainly born into wealth, and lots of it.
That being said, a good exposition of his most common use of these layers of sound is cutting between his voice and the other three. So a linear timeline of a Nerdwriter video will be a constant repetition of Puschak's voice and one of the three choices of sound. An interesting note to point out here is that Puschak tends to use his speech to present an information and then sound to emphasize. So he'll give a statement and then cut to sound to prove it, whether it's a quote, an excerpt of a film, or just sound effects.
Christie, of course, was the man who sent Jared's father to jail.
Mr. Kushner engaged in a conspiracy with co-conspirators.
This way his video essays will have an assembly of a paper essay with proper statements and evidence interplaying in between, except reading quotes written on a screen is a lot less interesting than this.
His 8 films have grossed over $1.5 billion worldwide, and writing about his work could fill a small library.
Every Nerdwriter video is carefully designed to show evidence after information over and over again in the tightest possible rhythm. Tight enough so that your attention never shifts regardless of how relevant the information is to you, but it's not so tight so it's not incomprehensible. And even when encountering subjects that may contradict with this structure, Puschak never compromised. For example, when constructing a video essay about music, a good general rule of thumb to follow is to avoid additional use of non-diegetic music in the edit so that the final result won't cause the audience to confuse the mood setters with the subject the essay is trying to tackle. In another essayist works whom I constantly steal from, Tony Zhou from Every Frame a Painting, the one time his essay doesn't involve any background music is when he's analyzing the Marvel Symphonic Universe, which is why all the soundtracks you hear in that particular essay are actually diegetic source audio as evidence supporting his argument rather than non-diegetic background music.
Did you have an emotional reaction to that music?
Because I think he knows the massive pain in the ass it is going to be to even try to distinguish between the two layers of music. But when Nerdwriter analyzes Howard Shore's musical composition from The Lord of the Rings,
Fellowship theme using just French horn and core and
What
glay.
Bilbo used to say, it's a dangerous business, Frodo, going out your door.
what's even more amazing here is how many layers of sound Puschak is able to maneuver around so seamlessly. In this particular example, Puschak manages to cram in 3 layers of sound within merely 8 seconds of runtime.
Fellowship theme using just French horn and core and
What
glay.
Bilbo used to say, it's a dangerous business, Frodo, going out your door.
And it never seems chaotic or confusing, not by the slightest measure. Because each layer of sound fades in so smoothly, it's hard to imagine how much effort he must have put into them just to make it unnoticeable. You could have only imagined that the only way this is possible is he had already planned out how the music is going to be placed when he wrote the essay. Putting aside all the music and sound effects, the most important part of the essay is probably his own voice. Now again, I'm not going to analyze his scripts, but whenever I put Puschak's voiceovers up against other essayist works, the most prominent distinction is probably Puschak's attentiveness to vocabulary pacing. This is, in my opinion, the most unique approach and one that separates him the most with his peers. You see, Puschak doesn't just read his speech. Each sentence has a distinctive tempo, carefully designed so that the right words will be heard with the right momentum and the right emphasis with the right weight.
When people evaluate great actors, what often gets mentioned most is range. How many different characters they can play, how many different emotions they can realistically, movingly show.
When I did this little exercise, I began to realize how poignant his vocal emphasis actually are. If I took the words he slowed down on and isolated on them, you can pretty much grasp the gist of the whole speech. Puschak cannibalizes this in every corner of his essays to the point where you can literally figure out the level of importance a specific part of the essay is. For example, when you're just reading out words that's being shown on a screen, the right thing to do is probably just to speed through it because the audience can easily pause the video and read it themselves, and it's more likely just a leeway to his next important statement.
Like, you know who's not to blame for Jennifer Lawrence's nude photo leaks? Jennifer Lawrence. Stop blaming Jennifer Lawrence and other celebrities for taking nude photos in the first place.
But when ending a video, Puschak brushes each syllable so that when you hear it, it sticks, and when paired with the music that swells in after his final words, everything will leave you mesmerized.
In the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Howard Shore gave us perhaps the most complete and complex exploration of leitmotifs in the history of cinema. And the result is a score that's as alive as the world Tolkien gave us.
I want to clarify, I do believe content is king, but Puschak's sonic world is something that is a beast of his own kind, and it's one of his most unrecognized craft. Because I think with enough time, effort, and dedication, anybody can just be as knowledgeable as the person next to them. But to transcend that knowledge so elegantly so that somebody as unintelligent as I am can also be educated is really a genius I'm thankful for, and a gift to everybody else.
The impact I want to have is I want to articulate things in such a way that people actually view a different world than they viewed before they heard what I said about it. You know, because the world and our minds are made up of language, and when you find a new way to, write that language, you change the world and you change people's minds.